Welcome to the garage. I'm Robert, and this is Haslip Cycle Works. Today, we're going to continue working on our Vulcan 750 project. I've received where that we needed to finish the install of our seat, and all I've done is mark the center, and I've gone ahead and taken the gas tank off the bike. What we're going to do is this should mount roughly right here. We'll notch so that this sits down on the frame. We'll measure from the back of here to where the back of the seat mounts. We'll get our seat frame length dialed in, and then what we'll do once we do that, we'll have to end up cutting these extensions that we put on, slug the extensions in this U-turn piece, and that will give us a complete frame for our seat, which we will then line up and weld to the frame of the bike. But what I'm going to do now is take the paint off in this general area so that we can start measuring, marking, and notching. I'll go ahead and do that now. I'll bring you back once I got the paint off the frame. To notch to accept our seat frame. So what I've done is measured to make sure we're centered. I'm using my welding magnets to hold the frame in place. I have leveled our frame, and what I'm going to do is trace on the backbone where this frame intersects, and that's where we'll cut. One is taking our Sharpie and gotten some rough ideas of where we're going to cut. So I went ahead and welded our hoop to our frame after I notched it. Several passes, nice smooth transition. The footage for the welding of that was no good. With the position I was in, the position that I could put the camera in, and the position of the torch, you couldn't actually see what I was doing. So unfortunately there won't be any footage of that. Now what we need to do is the same thing we did when we joined the parts to our seat hoop together. Plug weld with our slug. So that's going to fit in like that. I have a hole pre-drilled on the top and on the side. Now the dilemma is, once we have this in here, I'll show you how much it moves. Even though it's a pretty decent fit, you can hear it. It moves around. So how do we center this in this tube when we go to do our plug welds and tack it in, when we can't take it off the bike and put it on the weld table and use that to keep everything straight and true? Well, what we do is bring the straight and true to the tubing, and I'll show you what I mean. All right, so what I've done, just to show you how this is going to work out, is I've cut another piece of our tubing that matches this and put our slug in it. I'm going to slide our slug into the tube, and as you can see, there is some play there. And what we're going to do is take a piece of angle, and then we're going to take 2 hose clamps and we'll tighten it down. And I'll bring you back once it's all tightened down, but it will center this tube up and make it straight and true. Let me grab a screwdriver and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so we've tightened up our 2 hose clamps, and that has brought this piece of 90 degree, which gives us 2 planes that we're truing up to against this tube. Our slug is now in there, perfectly centered and straight with this tube. This is just acting as a spacer, just because the wall thickness will give us the correct height for the slug. So now, other than wiping it down with some acetone, we're ready to plug weld our slugs in. And we'll do the same thing on that side. So as you can see, we filled our plug welds. Our slug is in and solid. What we need to do is get the gas tank temporarily mounted back on the bike, get it all leveled and ready to go, and then we start the measure for the rest of the frame for our seat. See, I've put the tank back on Project Vulcan. Tank is pretty much centered up on our tubing. Okay, so I just wanted to share a tip with you guys. If you have something that's bent like this, and you know you need to mark it at a certain point, and then the same mark on the other side, how do you make sure those are consistent? So what you can do is take a known straight and correct 90-degree angle, back your piece up to the edge, this on that leg of the 90. You take your measurement on this end, measure from this end of the table to your mark here, and then you measure from this end of the table and make your mark on this side. Another tip, when you go to mark something round, especially if you're cutting on a bandsaw, you want to mark it all the way around the tube. A lot of people say tape and get your mark, and then you wrap your tape around up against that mark, and that gives you your edge to fall all the way around. But if you notice, don't use electrical tape. What you need is something that's heavy, and when you pull on it, it doesn't stretch or distort the edge of that tape, because that tape is your guide, the edge is. So if you wrap electrical tape around this and you pull it tight, it's going to be wavy and you're going to be stuck wondering why. Well, as you pull it, that electrical tape will actually shrink. That's going to throw your mark off. What I like to use is this aluminum tape, because if you pull on this, all it's going to do is straighten out. It's not going to distort the edges or the width of the tape. So wrap this around your mark and make sure that when it comes around, both sides meet perfectly. Then you know you've got a straight line all the way around your tube. Gone ahead and cut our seat hoop. Just need to dress the ends and clean the inside. Then we'll test fit it to the bike, and then we'll go ahead and drill our holes for the plug welds, and we'll burn it in. I've welded our plug welds for our connections on our tubing and begun to tack the tubing in place just to make sure it doesn't move. The little welds in the back. Everything is nice and straight. We don't have any bowing out in the straight legs. Everything's nice and level and even. Looks pretty good. What I'm going to do is finish welding all this in. I'm going to leave the bottom open for now, because I'm going to come in and cut along this brace like so, and kind of sweep it up a little bit so it meets in there, nice and smooth transition, and then we'll rebox the gusseting piece. Be a nice smooth flow from the strut all the way up to our seat hoop, and we'll blend it all in. Cap everything off, fully weld everything, and then we'll get the gas tank bolted back to the bike, and we'll make our new rear gas tank mount, and then we'll build our braces that run across our seat hoop, and will also act as the mount points for the seat. So hopefully in this video we'll have all that done, the tank in place, maybe some paint on the new seat frame to keep it from rusting, our bracing put in, our seat mounted, our gas tank, rear gas tank mount built. Hopefully get these struts and those transitions all cleaned up and smoothed out and fully welded. So what I've done off camera is added a mount on the frame hoop for the back of the tank. If you remember, the tank had like a little foot that comes off it, a little tab with a hole in it, rubber isolator. So the mount for the tank is just like the seat mounts that I made earlier, just a piece of flat bar stock that runs all the way across. It has a hole popped in the center of it. The only difference than it and the rest of the seat mounts is on the back side of that flat stock, I've welded a nut. So there's a bolt that runs through the rubber isolator, through the foothole on the tank, through the mount, and threads into that nut on the back and tightens it all down. As you can see, it's nice and sturdy. Bolted the seat down. You can see fit up and alignment is perfect. Looks really sharp on this bike with the pleated pattern. What I'm going to do now is grab the cafe seat hump and throw that on there real quick and show you guys what it looks like. Alright, so here she is with the seat hump, and it's just setting on there right now. Gotta come up with a way to mount that to our seat frame, but the cutout for the third brake light fits perfectly. As you can see, all the way around. It looks amazing on the bike. Can't say enough good things about that seat. So I think that's going to wrap up this episode. On the next episode, what we're probably going to do is come up with a gusset that'll run from this from the shock tube. We'll run a gusset from here to our seat frame, kind of strengthen that all up, and we'll get this all welded in along with that gusset. May put a gusset in up here at the front as well, kind of tie it in. Then we're going to clean this up here. We want to kind of come off this shock mount and taper it in, and then we'll rebox the back side of that. But there's no need for all this extraneous metal here, and it's not going to smooth in as well as I would like if we try to keep it. So we're going to cut that out and build that plate and get this all fully welded. Once we do that, we can remove the old tank mount, and I'll probably replace that with a piece of tubing that runs between the frame. Keep that nice and tight. And then we got to figure out what to do with all these electronics in the battery. Trying to find out if I can get rid of a lot of the control board stuff on this bike, because ideally I'd like to have as little as possible from here down, kind of give it that nice open look. Paint ideas. Originally I was thinking gloss black, flat black, red, maybe a little gold. I don't know, what do you guys think? Open to ideas for the paint scheme on this bike, even though it's going to be very, very little that gets painted. It'll be the cafe hump and the tank, and that'll be it. Down in the comment section, let me know what you guys think for color on this thing. Color combination ideas, maybe flat black with a gloss black stripe down the middle that will flow into the cafe hump, and red and gold on one side of each, or on each side of the stripe. I don't know. You guys tell me. I'm not really the artistic type. I'm not good at picking out colors. That's probably why I stick with red, black, and that sort of thing. But let me know. And there may also be some sort of, depending on what we do down here, there may be some sort of filler plate, maybe with some numbers on it or something. But yeah, that's how she sits right now. She's coming together. I think that's it for this episode. Until next time, get out there and do it.